Chris, how are you, mate?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm just starting. I can just feel a cold coming on.
Oh, no, it's the
Yeah,
time of
that
year,
hot.
but
I can feel it now in my face. Oh no.
yeah,
I was in like a shop, like co-op, getting some milk, and I just had this cough come on, and everyone still gives you like the look, like
Mm.
you got COVID.
Yeah, that's still a thing, isn't it? Really, like I think I keep
Yeah,
seeing people that are testing, and yeah, it's still.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think it's always going to be there, but
Mm.
as I said just before we came on, like I had a rehearsal with an orchestra, and two of the people saying, "Yeah, I've just got over it again." I was like, oh, "It's not going anywhere. It's always going to be here."
Yeah, I generally try and avoid contact with
People.
yeah, yeah. As much, what I mean, like in a gig situation is kind of like go in, do the gig, and try
Yeah.
and avoid the general public, and as much.
No kissing and hugging.
No.
No. So what have you been up to? I always see that you're super busy. What have you been up to over the last couple of years?
I try to be busy. So my main gig at the moment is with Marco Mendoza, who is known for his bass playing with bands like Whitesnake, Thin Lizzy, Journey. I think is his most recent session. So he's doing his solo thing. He's got 4 records out, and we're touring primarily Europe. We've already done 55 shows this year in Europe. So going back out in 2 weeks. So yeah, I've been home for a little bit, which is great. So yeah, that's primarily my gig. And last year I did a theatre show. Did 70 shows with a theatre show called The Story of Guitar Heroes, which was completely different world to like the rock and roll club circuit. So yeah,
How did you find doing the theatres?
It was great. It was it's very. I can only describe it as being like a really clean version of touring. It's like you walk into a nice theatre at 2 p.m. and the day is the same every day. Sound check, go for dinner, and it was great. It wasn't like a pit band or anything. It was just 4 guys on stage doing like a Guitar Hero show.
And finished by 10.
Great, but very, very different.
And finished by 10.
Finished by 10. Yeah,
it's great, isn't it?
10 p.m. every night. It's like, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So the one I'm on at the moment, because it's there's kids in the show.
Yeah,
I think we're going to be done by 9.
Wow.
I'm like, that's
crazy.
That'll be okay.
I mean, with Marco, sometimes it's like 10:30, 11 before we even go on.
Yeah,
especially some of the Eastern European countries that are just like, we're literally open all night, so do what you want. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like completely different worlds, and it's, I don't know, the older I get, the more I want to lean towards doing the early one.
Yeah, I mean, when I leave for tour, I'm on the dad body clock, and it takes me ages to stop waking up at 6:30.
Yeah.
And get into, trying to get enough sleep.
Yeah. How is that? And how is that like doing that? People always talk about work-life balance, and how do you find it doing parenting and music?
I'm really, really lucky that my wife is really supportive, and if there's the opportunity to leave me sleeping, then she's really good and will do that. And it's obviously a balance that I have to personally deal with, being away a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, she always said to me that the person who it's hardest for is me, because at least she's got, she's here with the kids, with the house, with the routine, with everything. Yeah, I mean, it works. It's it's more.
I mean, I think we always just sort of find a way to make it work. I think it does. It can piss certain people off.
Yeah.
I had to leave early from one of the rehearsals I was on. I was like, I've just got to get back, because it's, by the time I leave rehearsal, get back to my kids, take them home, it's going to be at least 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, we've got another hour. I was like, well, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
You didn't say that. You said we'd start at 5:30, and I thought 5:30 till 9 would be enough time. But
yeah,
but yeah,
it is a balance, and I have to just make sure that it's great because obviously when I'm home.
Yeah,
like I've not been away now for 8 weeks or so, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, so
yeah,
it's a good stretch of time. I was home all of August, all through the summer holidays, which is great. So
nice.
yeah, so
Nice.
yeah,
Nice.
there's pros and cons, isn't there? But
Yeah. And so what? So how does things like practice? How does that sort of fit into your schedule?
Generally,
Do you call it practice? Do you
practice these days is very much what am I preparing for, rather than sitting down and working on something in particular. Before I was doing a lot of touring with Marco, I'd be doing a lot of one-offs, and it could be 4 or 5 different band projects in a month or something. So practice would very much be just preparing for what's coming next. It would be very, very rare that I'd get time to sit down and go, I'm going to work on something for me. So I guess it's just keeping on top of being prepared enough to do the job well, and also just making sure that, I guess it's more for my brain, knowing that I can take in the information and perform it well. Yeah. So completely different from how it would have been 20 years ago, where it was.
So I mean, 20 years ago, would that be the case to be like, right, today I'm going to sit down and I'm going to work on, I don't know, any drummer exercises?
To be honest,
triplet paradiddles, I don't know.
I can never remember a time where I sat down really and worked on that stuff, though I can do it. It was never something where I spent hours and hours and hours sort of like with a practice pad. Practice for me in the formative years was definitely just putting on a record and playing to it. Like, what do I hear?
Yeah.
Can I replicate what's happening on the record?
Yeah.
And just really just going through as many records as possible. And that's something I think that through my experience of any teaching that I've done is just not a thing anymore.
No, I was just going to ask you, do you think that is a thing that kids learning drums do?
When I was teaching, the amount of kids that just didn't listen to music was just unreal.
I know. All right, so that spans across at least 2 instruments. Nobody listens to music.
I would ask someone what their favourite song was, and they'd be like, "Oh, I don't have one." I would just be like, "Okay." It just seems a bit foreign.
I don't understand that answer.
It seems a bit foreign to me that is an answer. You're learning an instrument, yet you don't listen to music. It's So I would try and introduce music, and it would kind of creep in or not. But I mean, for me growing up, it was just like, what can I play to next? Yeah.
I mean, one of the first lessons I had was with a guy that I used to work with. And, every sort of couple of weeks he'd show me a new chord or a new song or a new intro or a new thing. And as things started to sort of build and progress, he said, right, the next thing you want to try and do is you want to try and be able to play an album from start to finish. Pick an album. I think the first one I did was Dookie by Green Day.
Okay, yeah.
Start to finish, and then I moved on to like What's the Story, Morning Glory, or 10, or Nevermind, or stuff. And it was the same thing. I'd try and play through the whole album.
Yeah.
And it's just exactly the same for guitar players today. It's like, what do you listen to? It's like, I don't listen to music.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Which is crazy.
I was the same. I used to love live albums, and when like
how different is it?
What, live albums? Yeah.
So I'll put this on. How different is it to the actual recorded record?
It depends on the artist, I think. But yeah, live albums.
Sorry. I was saying, like, that's what, when I put on a new album, I'll be saying to myself, how different is it? What new stuff are they putting in?
Yeah. What other stuff are they putting in? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I used to love like being 9 or 10 years old and just kind of like, you're imagining that you're playing that gig, I guess. And Queen live at Wembley was one for me. That that would be the one I'd try and get through the whole album.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that was practice. I guess it was just like doing that, playing to records.
Yeah. Have you got any headphones? Because I've got a little bit of a feedback coming in. I was trying to see if that fixes it. The only reason I do that, I had somebody on a few weeks ago, and I said, "Oh no, these kind of echo things usually get fixed in post," and it didn't.
All right, that should work. This is
right.
great.
You still got me
as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Headphones.
Have you still got me?
I've got you. Yeah. Have you got me?
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah.
It's not going to override this mic or anything. Should be right.
No, I think we're good.
All right. Cool.
Just give us a 1, 2.
1, 2.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Yes. So, yeah, playing along to albums was just, a huge part of my practice, and it wasn't until I started having really formal guitar lessons a few years ago that I would actually sit down and work on specific exercises. But when I started doing that, like, progress just advanced massively technically.
Yeah. I've obviously I got to a point where I knew certain drummer exercises. I mean, there's a pretty extensive list of what you can do with different sticking patterns and that sort of thing, like drummers will understand. But then there's the argument of how many of those can you use on a gig? From a drummer's point of view, it's not that many on your standard gig. So, the older I got, the less I thought it was important to be the next Thomas Lang, for example, and be able to play all this crazy independent stuff and focus more on what I thought was appropriate for a working musician to be able to, do and be good at those simpler things.
Yes, I know. I mean, I don't know how good a reference it is, and I think Hollywood is a very good reference for anything, really. But I recently rewatched Whiplash. That's a mouthful.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't. I've never seen that one.
I mean, one of the comments that as soon as it came out, there was a guy I know who's a show band drummer, and his major criticism of it was, why are we always focusing on tempo as drummers? And I was like, mate, well, it's a movie. It's a movie made for people that aren't drummers. And I think one of the only things that you could quantify in a movie to symbolize a person's progress on drums is tempo. You couldn't quantify feel or groove.
No.
Tempo is really the only thing you've got. Can this guy play? I think it was like swung 16ths at 300 BPM. And he just couldn't do it. And the whole movie was like, well, not the whole movie, but a big chunk of it was, can this kid get up to that tempo?
Right.
And he beats himself to death trying to get up there. But it's a really good, I think it was a really good, trying to find the right words. When you have a teacher that is hell bent on making sure that you are the best version possible.
Okay.
And they're prepared to push you to your absolute limit, to the point of like you're being abused.
Yeah.
But the outcome is you're now fucking great. And one of the analogies the teacher used is when Charlie Parker, he said he got kicked out of a jam night, and they said, don't fucking come back until you can play. And he could already play, but he spent like a year, 2 years, just honing all of his skills before he came back. And the teacher said that if the guys had just said to him, good job, you did a good job, like, he never would have been great. He just would have been good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a really interesting subject for teaching, and not necessarily just for music, but for anything. Like, are you prepared to be pushed as far as you can be pushed in order to be great? Yeah,
I think again, there's so many teachers and teaching methods, and I don't think there's many. I think I always go back to the great players that came about, the late 60s, early 70s. This obviously goes for drummers and guitarists. And because like having music lessons wasn't as common as it is now, these players were forced to push themselves, but they had the drive to do it, to be the best and the most unique that they could be. And I think obviously without having the volume of teachers and lessons that we have now, it did bring out a lot of uniqueness because everyone had sort of worked out their own way of doing it. But you do obviously hear about those great teachers that do really, really drive that message home. Yeah.
Yeah. What's it like? You know, because I mean, for guitar players now, I think it's so quick and easy for you to become technically really good.
Yeah.
Like with all of the teaching sources that are available, all of YouTube or Instagram, and the availability of teachers or players or session players. I mean, I've had lessons with, you know, LA session guitar players.
Yeah.
And that's not something that was possible 20 years ago. I mean, is that the same for drummers? I mean, is it easier now to become technically brilliant quickly?
Yeah, I think so. I think that those same platforms, you've got, you know, YouTube, which is, you know, an endless, you know, supply of amazing guitarists. Instagram obviously has its thing, but I mean, we've got Drumeo. I don't know if you've heard of Drumeo, which is
I've heard of it.
It's just like a really, really leading platform that you can subscribe to, and you can get all these lessons, and pro drummers are, you know, in there teaching, and so I think you can get really, really good really quickly. And obviously, Instagram is like a whole minefield of shredding, right? So yeah, so I think you can, but again, it's how useful is that in the world that we are in?
Yeah.
You know, it's the argument. And the older I got, the less I wanted to go down that path of being like the next YouTube or Instagram drummer. And, you know, the quicker I realized that it wasn't going to be A, possible, and B, useful, I kind of, you know, tailed off a slightly different direction. But yeah, I think those that have the drive to become very technically proficient very quickly, there is, you know, endless supply of stuff to teach you to do it. Yeah.
Do you think people miss something?
Yeah, playing with other people.
Yeah,
that's the one. Like the amount of people that I've come across online and often wondered how they would get on at a jam night.
Yeah.
Or, you know, on a gig situation, because obviously we've played together on functions.
Yeah.
And that particular band was very much, you know, zero set list, what's coming next.
Yeah.
You know, working with Chris O'Leary in particular, he would want to do things really off the cuff, spur of the moment. And that's something that you can only learn by being out there and playing with other people. So I think it is a completely different world. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's almost, I mean, it's always sad and a shame, because I think there are a lot of people that not necessarily have a full sense of security about their playing. Like I guess it is a little bit sort of, they get kind of a full sense of their ability, I suppose, that, okay, I can do all of this technical stuff, I can go up and down scales, I can do all these paradiddles, I've done all the stuff that the video has shown me. And then when you're put on a show, you put on a gig or a jam night, and it's like, fuck, I haven't learned that. I'm not listening enough. I don't listen to enough music. And so I'm missing out this. And that's just such a huge chunk of learning an instrument, is listening.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is listening to everyone else. And, you know, I'm even still discovering that now. Obviously playing with Marco has been a completely different experience than previous gigs for me, because, you know, he comes from a completely different school of musicians in a different era, and the way he does things and wants things, it's very much like, even I, you know, when I first started the gig, it was like, all right, I'm going to have to really listen even more, because, you know, he really sort of, as he puts it, like controls the traffic. Like he'll do things and want you to link in, and if he does something, it means that he's going to go somewhere else. So, yeah, I mean, even after playing for so many years, I'm still sort of learning the same thing. But yeah, I think for someone to come in that hasn't had that experience but is technically proficient, it would be a struggle for sure. Yeah.
What do you think? What would you say is a good way to kind of to mitigate that? Because, lessons on YouTube or Instagram Reels teaching kids how to listen isn't really going to sell.
No, that's an interesting one. Yeah, it's difficult because you're right. People aren't going to be interested in that. So I think obviously if you're able to do one-to-one lessons and obviously start learning about how to dissect songs and what other people are doing rather than just your instrument is a really good way to do it. But obviously the obvious thing is to get out and play with other people. Yeah.
Getting harder and harder to do. Less and less places, less and less jam nights, less and less.
Absolutely.
Even open mics, venues are closing.
They are
10 to a penny.
Yeah. It is really difficult. I do some freelance work for a university down here in Brighton called Waterbear. And I go into some sixth form settings and basically try and tell them what Waterbear can offer, as well as telling them about my role in the industry and the different ways to work in the industry. And all the time I'm just trying to get the point across that it might be university and you might not be interested in it, but after your 8 or 9 hours classroom time, it's a music course, you've got all that time to be out playing gigs, going to gigs, jamming in the rehearsal room, and that time is going to be more valuable than not more valuable, but essentially your free time is just as valuable as your education time, because you're just meeting people, playing with people, and it's the old school way of doing it, isn't it? But again, it is really difficult, but obviously the more these places can offer something like that, it's definitely worth maybe looking in that avenue for it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was chatting to somebody about education, and I'll go with this. What's your thought on the modern music education setting? Did you go to college or anything, or uni when you were younger?
So I went to college straight from school and didn't enjoy it.
Right. Was that a music college or just a regular?
It was a regular college, but it was a music course. And I didn't feel like I was getting much out of it. I was like one of 2 drummers, and there was about 30 guitarists and 1 bass player.
That's the reality of music, though. There's usually only 2 drummers and a queue of guitar players.
Yeah, I played for about 4 or 5 bands at college, and didn't feel like I was necessarily learning much about what I thought I would be. And I think it was my dad that said, you'd be better off just trying to go out in the real world and learn that way. You'll learn more by, playing pub gigs and that sort of thing. Yeah. Which I think he was right. So I did that. I joined pub bands and joined as many bands as I could. And I actually only did a degree course. I did an online degree course at the end of my 20s. So I think I was about 28, and I did it online so I could continue working. So my experience of university isn't that of going, because I was already sort of like 10 years into working in music. Yeah. But from what I've heard, some settings aren't great, because again, it's the same thing as college. There was 30 guitarists in a room, and I find it difficult that anyone's going to learn very well. So the good thing about Waterbear, not just to be biased, that obviously I do some work for them, but is they do really small class sizes. And they cap the class sizes so that you'll only have like 4 or 5 drummers on a course for your entire 3 years and that sort of thing. Which I think is a better way to do it, because obviously they get the more valuable time, which is really important. But when I was teaching privately myself, I would refuse to do group lessons, because I just didn't think that you should take the time away from one student just so that other student can have a go within your 20 minutes, 30 minutes that you've got. So it's really difficult, I think, because of obviously the volume of people that might be doing these courses, these education courses. So yeah, I think it's really difficult.
It's not easy. I mean, I've spoken to a few people and they've said that the standard has slipped. So when I was at college, I actually got refused to do the degree course because my sight reading wasn't good enough.
Oh, really?
And two of the teachers that used to work in some of these bigger, well-known, established music courses said that wouldn't happen today.
No.
You'll just get let on. Like, it doesn't matter what you... Like, one guy said that the guitar audition process was, can you play an E chord?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was it. If you could do that, you're in. It's like, well, that's... So you're going to have a huge spectrum of players that are within the same classroom.
Yeah,
that seems unfair. If you're on either side of that spectrum, that just seems massively unfair.
That's like the complete opposite end of the scale to what you experienced, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I would hate to think what establishment that would be, but yeah.
I'm sure you can take a guess.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I mean, you've got to have a certain amount of proficiency in your instrument in the first place, right? To obviously make it like you said, not a huge spectrum of abilities, because again, that is unfair. And B, that you're going to obviously understand and get out everything that you need from... It's a university course at the end of the day, isn't it? It's not, I'm here to learn how to play an instrument. You know,
I'm here. Yeah. It's. I think it's strange. I think something needs to happen. And I was chatting to another guitar player who used to work at one of these courses, and I said, "What needs to happen?" And he just said, "I think small university courses will start cropping up, like courses that you and I would write, and you'd get 5 or 6 people turn up, as long as you could get it accredited to be a legitimate university, either degree or diploma." The thing is, that's how all of these schools started out. They started out with just like a classroom with 5 to 10 kids turning up.
Yeah.
And then it just sort of grew from there. And I think that's the only... I mean, I think that's the way it's going to go if you want to give people good education so that they're able to go and work.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's about getting people ready to be musicians in the industry rather than just getting them through a degree course and going, well done.
Here's your piece of paper.
Good luck.
Yeah. But you can't play a backbeat. You can't read a chord chart. You can't...
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's most of your working life.
It is, yeah. Or being able to make your own chart. For me, that was the big one of... I'm by no means a great sight reader. I can read notation, drum notation. I wouldn't be able to get to a gig and not have seen it before.
Yeah,
but I could work through it. But the small amount of skills I do have, I can write a really good cheat sheet, and then if I've got to notate anything that is particular, like a particular beat or a particular fill, then I can do it. So again, going back to my self-teaching, I would always, from lesson number 1, start teaching simple notation.
Yeah,
to make sure that they could write their own cheat sheet, and then I was happy. And then if they wanted to go further and learn how to, sight read like really proficiently, then that's absolutely fine. But as long as they could write a cheat sheet, then
we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, no, I the last couple of years I started with this with my students, that if I kind of found my niche with teaching is I love taking brand new students, can't play a thing, and I can kind of work them up to playing through really simple songs. But when I hit that stage, I kind of get bored, and I'm like, I just want a continuous cycle of people that either can't play, or they've started themselves, or they had lessons with someone else, and they're just kind of struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
And what I've started to do with kids that can play really simple, basic songs, I'm like, right, well, what we're going to do now is I'm just going to put chord charts in front of you of tunes. I'm going to give you 2 or 3 minutes. Any chords you don't know, you go away. Come back in next week and make sure you can play them. And just, can you play through this chart? And I'll dictate, I'll notate, I'll tell you where we're going, what section, A section, B section, now repeat the B section. And we'll just start working on technical exercises. I've just found that there are so many teachers that just sort of phone it in, and they'll just teach you songs.
Yeah.
Song after song after song. And that's fine. But let's go back 6 months and look at the song you did in June. Can you still play it? If you can't, then what's the point? Because it's like rote learning.
Yeah.
You've learnt the song, you've forgotten the song, you've moved on to the next one. And I would rather you be able to play 2 or 3 songs perfectly, consistently, rather than here's 50 that we've done and you can't play any of them.
Yeah, it's about building up a repertoire, essentially, isn't it? Of not just learning it, but retaining that information and retaining those skills to play that song. And absolutely. Yeah. I used to go in a little bit deeper with some and, actually get them to listen. It's like, what do you hear? Like, are you sure that that's played on the hi-hat and not that, and get them to actually, and then they go, oh, okay, so that must mean we're on a different section. I'll be like, exactly. So this goes on the cheat sheet, right?
Yeah.
So move over here. Like,
move to the ride, move to the crash.
Exactly. How many times is it happening? And, it sort of embedded the learning while doing it, obviously writing it down, listening, writing it down. But that's a really good point about obviously going back over things that you did 6 months ago. Like, is it still in there?
Yeah.
Because that's something as a working musician you have to do all the time. Like,
you get to a gig, like, oh, I haven't done that in a while. Quick, let me put it on, have a listen.
Yeah, you take a function gig and like the only description is standard function tunes. Okay, so which of the 100 songs that I've done before is it going to be? So but I think doing that is great for learning. It's like, oh shit, I haven't done that in a while. All right, let's see how good I am. Yeah, and it's always interesting to see how much you actually remember. I did a gig actually on Saturday, just gone, and it's a depth situation. The last time I depped for the band was February. So they send the set list, and it's just like, okay, looks about the same. Like, okay, I've got to check the ending of this song and that song, but otherwise it's like 2 hours of just remembering. Yeah, and it's great because it comes back, it's fresh, it's Yeah. But it's also a bit of a test of like, hey, I mean, you always get those moments of, oh, I don't remember what's happening next. But
this segue. Do we segue this? Is this a medley? Is this, or no? We'll find out when we get there. Yes, I didn't realise you were down in Brighton. I thought you were over in Gloucester.
No, I guess when we last saw each other, I was living in Berkshire. I was living in it was about half an hour between Newbury and Swindon, but I was working for a function band in Gloucester.
Right, okay.
At the time, which would have been, what did we work out? It was like 2015 or something.
Something like that, like 14, 15.
9 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, which is depressing. Yeah.
I don't know where the time's gone to start with. But we moved down to just outside Brighton in 2019 and been here. Right, okay. Been here ever since, yeah.
Oh, right, okay. Well, I'll throw some stuff your way if you're about.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing we talk about is, what do you view as getting better? How does getting better? What does it look like today? What does it look like 20 years ago?
20 years ago, it was definitely like having to impress people. Like, how fast can I play? How many notes can I play? And very much, I would have to probably. I guess it's the same with a lot of young people. We'd be overplaying. In my early 20s, I was actually playing in a metal band. So it was very much like, I guess I was always just trying to impress every single audience member. Yeah. With like the metal chops and all that kind of thing. Where I am today, it's definitely, taking on obviously the advice of who I'm working with at the moment. It's more about impressing who I'm on stage with, I think, because that's the most important thing. Yeah. If there's 500 people in the audience and there's probably only one or two of them are drummers, and most people don't care. So it's definitely a learning curve of how what I'm going to play makes the music feel. How is it, going to translate in the room that we're playing? And I'm very lucky that Marco's worked with like some of the world's best drummers. So I take his advice and he kind of goes, all them notes, they're not going to translate to the back of the room. Play half the amount of notes. And so getting better is obviously taking this advice and kind of adapting my playing to make that work. And obviously it's all about the three of us on stage and what I'm doing to support that. And even the year and a half I've been working with Marco, it's just about playing less. Even at this stage of my playing, it's still about playing less. And you don't have to be playing fills here, and if you do a fill, make sure it's going to support the music. And then I still get the opportunity when there's like holes in the music to do a bit more, because it's going to translate better. But it's definitely about playing. It's the cliche, playing for the song, but it really is, and it's made a massive difference to me, and how I feel the music. I'm still listening to other drummers and going, wow, that sounds great, what are they doing? And realizing that, I think the most recent thing was realizing that if you're thinking about an eighth note beat, the ands in between, the 1 and 2 and 3, and they're just as important as those quarter notes. And I think I listen to a lot of drummers and I kind of go, I can see you playing an eighth note beat, but all I'm hearing is the 1, 2, 3, 4. And I was working on it with Marco, and he was just like, it's the ands that make it swing. So you have to. So I spent a bit of time on that in particular. I guess that's the last thing I properly worked on, and it made such a difference. And he was just like, listen to Ringo Starr. Like, one of the simplest things that you can do is to like really like. And then you listen to John Bonham and you can hear it. And so I guess it's a really simple thing, but that's, for me, that changed everything. It's
strange. Those little things that make a huge difference. Like, it's the same for guitar players. It's like, how many notes can I cram into this bar? How many, who am I trying to impress? And I had like technical lessons with a guitar teacher for on and off, and I still do. And I found that I was just focusing so much on my technique. But when I went to a jam night, I was like, I can't fucking play. I can't play. I can do all these exercises. And then I came home that night and I took a old Strat and I tuned it down to E flat, put on a Hendrix record, and just played through a Hendrix album.
One of the best rhythm players to ever have been, right? And he probably didn't regard himself much as a lead guitarist either, because he was such a proficient rhythm guitarist. But that's the thing, I guess, in the drumming sense, it's all about being that backbeat guy. And then when you get that little window to show some other stuff, that's impressive. Yeah. It's not playing all the notes all night long, because it just becomes like either A, boring, or B, not impressive, because that's all you've done all night. So it's definitely my perspective on what is good it has changed dramatically over the last 10 years.
How about if you get something, if somebody sends you a tune or a song or a chart or a gig and you just can't play it? Do you have a process of getting from I can't play this to shit, I've got to get this ready for Saturday?
10 years ago, I would have just had to have like really sat down and just tried. Nowadays, I'm a bit more honest, and I'll listen to it and I'll go, if you want something with all those kick drums in it, I'm probably not your guy. And I think I'm a bit more honest with myself about where I want to be sat musically. Because when I first went sort of freelance, I would say yes to absolutely everything. And the more I've sort of found exactly where I want to be, and sort of, I guess I brand myself a certain way, because you have to with, the social media thing. I kind of I'd rather turn down a gig than not do it 110%.
Yeah, half-ass it and blag your way through it.
Yeah, so nowadays I would definitely listen to it and go, I don't think I'm right for this gig, which I think is a huge learning curve for a lot of people, because I think just knowing where your strengths are and where your strengths might not be. I mean, I could absolutely sit down and spend 5 entire days learning something for a gig, but you have to weigh up. I guess it's a one-off gig. You're going to get paid a fixed amount of money. And you've just spent 8 hours a day for 5 days learning how to do it? Is it worth it as well? And that, you know, as a professional musician, you have to kind of weigh that up as well. But no, I think more for my own self, it's knowing straight away if I will be accepting the gig or not.
Yeah. Okay. How about if it was something that you wanted to learn? So let's say it wasn't for a gig, like you heard an album or something, a track or a fill, and you just couldn't do it. Like, right, I'm going to spend the week nailing this. What's your process to getting that down?
Okay, so if it was a certain part or a certain fill, I'd get the pen and paper out and I would try and work out on paper what the part was. And I've never been one to sort of slow anything down or anything like that. It's always just been listening over and listening over. And if I can finally get it down on paper, that's when I can visually see what's going on. And I can kind of take in then what each limb is meant to do, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it'd be, just a bit of time listening, get it on paper. And only then would I move over to try and start playing it. And then that process, obviously, once your brain kind of goes, okay, well, it's this, you've broken it down. Yeah. It either becomes easy to play at that point, or that's when you need to start working on muscle memory, which I'm guessing is the same for guitarists, muscle memory. But it's very much a thing for drummers. Obviously, you have to make sure that your limbs are it's transferring it from the brain to the limbs, which is sometimes an interesting.
I mean, and it's interesting that you said you weren't one for slowing it down. I think in the guitar community, we've got this almost like a habit that whenever we try and learn something, we break it to half speed first, or really slowly first, and then gradually we speed it up. And I've spoken to numerous people that said it's just a waste of time. Because if it's something that you're trying to do that's fast, the muscles you use to play it slow are different to the muscles you use to play it fast. And the notes or the fill is grouped differently as well. Yeah. You'll feel, well, depending where the accents are, at slow speed, the accents are in a different place. When as soon as you start to speed it up, the accents shift and then you've got to relearn it.
Yeah, and in a drumming sense, it's a completely different technique as well, playing fast or playing slow. So even listening to it slow, I don't think is I've never found that very useful either, because I know on YouTube you can half speed things and that sort of thing, but I've never found that useful because I don't know why. It's just that's not how it sounds. Yeah, you know, it's always just, you know. So maybe I don't always get it 100%, but it sounds right. Yeah, but
that's I mean, I think that's the best way to start learning something, is to do it as quick as you can. If it's a quick thing, to do it as quick as you can and just polish the edges up.
Yeah, I think obviously from how I learned in those formative years of putting on a record, it was just like play what you hear, and that's why obviously people end up going, oh, you play it like that. It's just like, that's just how I heard it. Like, especially on guitar, people can play. How many different positions can you play a certain run in? I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 positions over a neck that you can. It's you know, and you just kind of play what you hear, which is an interesting way of doing it. But it's just the way I've always approached it. Yeah.
And when you're doing stuff like this, how do you take criticism?
From who?
And leaders, MDs, producers.
Well, if I'm hired for a job, they can, criticize all they want until I get what they are after. Yeah. I've done enough time in the studio and worked for enough people that if I'm not giving them what they want, then I need to work out a way of doing it. And I'm absolutely fine with them going, that's not right, or we need you to do that differently. And that's absolutely fine. That's my job. What I have to do as someone who's being hired into the situation is be able to give them what they want as quickly as possible. Yeah. And I've often been in situations where, very nice for me to hear, but they go, that's why you're here, because we've told you to change it and you've done it and that's what we want. And it's taken 10 seconds. Yeah. That's why we've brought you in and aren't using, X, Y, or Z. So it is, just making sure that I am able to give them what they want as quickly as possible. So criticism is absolutely fine. Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be a cohort of musicians that aren't going to be able to take criticism?
I think that's something...
Because I do a lot of teaching in primary schools and secondary schools, and there's a culture of you can't be too honest with people. You've got to really soften up what you're saying, even though what you're saying is you can't do X, you need to be able to do this to do that. And they're not really getting... I'm not saying they're not getting the truth, but they're not... When an MD or a producer says you need to change that and do this, they'll do it bluntly, quickly. Yeah. Like we had a rehearsal, went through one of the songs last night, and the MD said we're going to do that again because that was shit. And that's not a language that you can use in schools or colleges or universities today. No,
I agree. I agree that, there's definitely ways of talking to people. It's more of a people skills thing. Obviously, I've been on both sides. So I've been the person having to give criticism and to give it in a nice way, but obviously while also being honest. And I think that's a skill that you have to learn. And I learned that from a friend of mine who was a producer. Yeah. And, I was on a session and, he would basically tell someone that they didn't do something very well, but went a very, very good way around it. Yeah. And I was just like, you're really good at telling people that they need to redo something. And he was just like, yes, just like you have to be honest, but in a really nice way. Yeah. So, I took that on board 100%. Yeah. But I've also been in the room with people exactly the same that are just like, that's terrible, do it again. And I think you have to, again, as someone who's hired in to do something, you have to have a certain thickness of skin and not take it personally, because if you're in a commercial studio or a situation where time is money, then they're going to be blunt, because it's like, just do it again. Yeah. Like, that's what you're here for. Like, so I get it, but I think that's more of a personal thing. If someone can't take that, then they need to kind of learn how to, thicken up their skin, I guess.
Maybe they should have skin thickening lessons in universities.
It's hard. It's hard to sort of get across what I mean, but it depends on the person. Like I've always been someone that if someone goes, Chris, that's shit, can you do it again? I'm just like, yeah, but tell me which bit was shit and I'll improve it. Yeah. Yeah. There's no point like getting really offended by it, because at the end of the day, if you are hired in, I'm using that as the sort of as the position, being hired in to do something. Yeah. Like, if you're maybe in a band situation, then it's a completely different dynamic. Well, taking that criticism, but again,
usually it's friends and stuff.
Yeah, so I guess friends definitely speak to each other differently. But I've been in a band situation where the producer's gone, I think we'll get this guy to record all the rhythm guitar because I think it'll be a bit tighter. And the other guy can take that one of two ways. Yeah. You can either go, okay, for the record, that's going to be a good thing, or he can sulk about it and, well, what do you want to do? You have to play tighter then. Either take the criticism well or don't. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think there are always opportunities to grow.
Absolutely.
Taking criticism.
100%. And I think that is where you improve and you get better, because it's the way you take the criticism and either improve in that area or don't, essentially.
Or you go away and sulk and
don't get better because you haven't taken it on board. You've taken it personally, and it's not personal. It's just, everyone can always improve. You get those pro musicians that have been playing for 50 years and been on countless records that still say that they can improve. Yeah. So, every situation is different.
I know, I can't remember who it was. It was like a famous cellist. And they said, why do you still practice? And she said, well, I think I'm getting better.
Yeah.
I think she was like a concert symphony orchestra cellist, and still practices and still works on timing, feel, and all that kind of stuff.
I listened to another podcast recently with Dave Gilmour as the guest. And
right. Do Joe, he doesn't answer my emails.
Does he not? Oh. Well, he's recently done one, so he might soon.
So maybe now, while the iron's hot.
So he hired Steve Gadd to do his latest record.
Okay.
And you would expect someone like Steve Gadd to be very like, I'm going to play it my way. But apparently it was the producer was just like, can you just go back in and do it again? And he was just like, okay. I want to get you to try that differently and, play it like this. And it's like, okay. And, it's exactly how you should be, right? Even if you're Steve Gadd level, he's taking on board what the producer says and he's just going in there and doing it again. Yeah.
Sidelining an ego.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, not saying that Steve Gadd has any. I mean, I think everyone has an ego, but when you've recorded
I think it's healthy to have a certain amount because you obviously have to accept that you're good at some point when you're Steve Gadd level, right?
Yeah.
He's obviously got some sort of something that goes, well, I've been on all these records, I must be doing something right. So I think a bit of ego, especially in a performance sense, if you're on stage, it's not a bad thing.
No, I agree.
I still really struggle with that sort of thing. I still feel really self-conscious playing gigs now.
Yeah.
It's just like, are these people looking at me? Like, I hate the front row. It's just like my worst nightmare. Any eye contact is just like, I hate it. So, yeah.
I learned to kind of embrace it. Like we spoke before we came on about the epoch of my life between drinking and not drinking.
Yeah.
Like going on stage after a few drinks would be fine. Everything's cool. And then to have to go through this process of stop drinking and then go and perform like stone cold sober. Those first couple of gigs was just like, I was literally just like, I had horse blinkers on. I was just staring at my feet and but learning to kind of embrace, like, come on, you've got to look up. And when you start doing it sober, and it's like you unlock this level of enjoyment that you were previously just walled off to, that alcohol or drugs would just keep you completely shielded from.
Yeah. I was in exactly the same position. I think when I was in my early 20s, I probably never played a gig without at least a beer. Yeah. And it does completely change perception. And it's only when you completely stop drinking that you realise that the perception is different. But, I'm very grateful for being in the position to be on the other side of that now, as well as you, to appreciate, being able to do it for a living. I definitely wouldn't be able to do the job I do now if I was drinking while, working.
Yeah. But there's no other job that allows that, really.
No, it's crazy.
Just turn up, have a few drinks, go to work.
Because I went full-time freelance after I stopped drinking. And a lot of situations I'd find myself in was, do you want a beer? I was like, no, thanks. Firstly, I don't drink. And the amount of people that don't accept that. But the other thing is, I'm working. And I go, it's only one. I'm working, though. Like, if I want to be professional, I'm going to treat it as a professional. You wouldn't want your electrician coming round after a beer or two, would you?
No.
So if someone's going to pay me, then they're going to get a professional job. And I think there was a lot of, there's still a lot of stigma in the music industry about not drinking. Yeah. Which is obviously very strange because it's a personal choice, but I've come across it quite a lot. But that's a whole different podcast.
So that's the different conversation completely. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, mate, it was really great to catch up.
Yes, you too. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you. It's been great to chat.
And we will speak soon.
Yes. Take care, and we'll catch up soon.
Cool.